Hello girls, I hope you're staying safe at home. Now in biology today we are going to start with a new chapter, that is respiration in plants. Now like all other living organisms, plants also need energy so that they can carry out all the activities that take place inside their body. So in this chapter we'll learn about the type of respiration. There are two types: aerobic and anaerobic respiration, okay, and how the diffusion of respiratory gases take place in plant. When we talk about respiratory gases, we are talking about oxygen and carbon dioxide, okay. And of course we will be learning about some interesting experiments also to show respiration in plants, okay. Now you know what is respiration, isn't it? All living cells in a plant, as well as of course in animals, in fact we're talking about all living things, they need energy for different activities that take place inside the body. For example, building up of proteins, that is making proteins from smaller particles, which is known as amino acids. For making starch from smaller particles of glucose. For absorbing water and minerals from the soil, or laying down cell walls by the plant cells, that is making of cell walls. These are such activities in plants that require energy. Now, how do plants get their energy? The energy is made available by the breakdown of glucose, a simple carbohydrate. You know how glucose is formed in plants by the process of photosynthesis. So, the chemical breakdown of glucose takes place by making use of oxygen, and this is the reaction, very important children, the chemical reaction where glucose is broken down by 6 molecules of oxygen, okay, with the help of enzymes, which forms 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, 6 molecules of water, and energy is produced. So there are 3 important characteristics of respiration in this equation. If you look at it, okay, we have just a single step in this reaction. But remember children, the breakdown of glucose to carbon dioxide and water does not occur in a single step, but in a series of chemical steps. There are different steps, one after another. But when we write an equation, we just write it in one single step. Now, these steps occur in 2 major phases. The first phase is known as glycolysis. Now, what happens in glycolysis? The glucose first turns into pyruvate. Okay, and this takes place where? It takes place in the cytoplasm. The second step or the second phase is known as the Krebs cycle. Okay, so what happens in the Krebs cycle? Remember, in glycolysis in the cytoplasm, glucose had turned into pyruvate. So now in the Krebs cycle, which takes place in the mitochondria, the pyruvate turns into carbon dioxide, water, and ATP, adenosine triphosphate, that is energy. Okay, in the form of a chemical energy is produced inside the plant body. Now, and each breakdown step is due to a particular enzyme. You know, enzyme is also known as a biological catalyst. It is a chemical compound which helps in the process of respiration, but itself remains unchanged. It speeds up the process of respiration. And remember children, the energy liberated in the breakdown of the glucose molecule is not all in the form of heat, but a large part of it is turned into chemical energy, I just now told you, in the form of ATP, and it is known as adenosine triphosphate, abbreviated as ATP. Remember children, in biology, these abbreviations are very important. Sometimes in your question paper, you will be asked to write down the full form of the abbreviation. So if I ask you, write down the full form of ATP, what will you write down? You'll write down adenosine triphosphate. Now, when we use energy, or when plants use energy for different functions, they use it in the form of ATP. So what happens? From ATP, adenosine triphosphate, there are 3 phosphate groups. One phosphate is used up when energy is used. Okay, so it is converted to ADP, adenosine diphosphate. Now there are only two phosphate groups. Okay, and again this abbreviation is important, adenosine diphosphate. Okay, now again when more energy is made in the plant body by breakdown of glucose using oxygen, the ADP is reconverted to ATP. That means one more phosphate group is added to the diphosphate and again it turns into ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate. So this process goes on and on. Okay, remember children, 1 mole of glucose on complete oxidation gives us 38 molecules of ATP. That is quite a lot of energy. Okay, so here you can see the breakdown of food. Okay, in respiration, glucose is broken down into carbon dioxide, water and energy, and some amount of heat is also produced. So when this energy is used, what happens? ATP is used, it turns into ADP, 2-phosphate, and again when the oxidation of glucose takes place, again it turns back into ATP, and this ATP is used when certain work takes place in the living organism. Now, ATP in biology is also known as energy currency of the cell. So you may get this as a one word. Okay, name the following, the energy currency of the cell. What will your answer be? ATP or adenosine triphosphate. Now, all activities that take place inside a living cell. Now, here we are talking about plants. It may be any living cell. They need energy. Okay, and it is available to them in the form of ATP. Okay, so ATP is therefore known as energy currency of the cell. Now, living organism shows two types of metabolic activities, that is the activities that take place inside the body. First is known as anabolic or constructive or biosynthetic process. It uses energy. Okay, next one is catabolic, destructive or breaking down processes. It gives out energy for use by the organism. Okay, now constructive means supposing from amino acids what is made? Proteins. So for that what is required? Energy is required. So it is anabolic activity. Okay, and catabolic, when glucose is broken down with the help of oxygen, it is broken down, and of course together with carbon dioxide, energy is also produced. So it gives out energy. It is destructive, breaking down glucose. So it is catabolic. So there are two types of metabolism that takes place inside a living organism: anabolism and catabolism. So respiration is a breaking down process by which a living cell oxidizes, that is use up oxygen, okay, and breaks down glucose and releases carbon dioxide, water and energy. So definition of respiration is a catabolic process of releasing energy from glucose for carrying out life processes. Now if we take a quick look at the difference between respiration and burning, okay, they are quite similar, but there are certain differences. Respiration takes place inside the cell, but burning does not take place inside a cell, it takes place outside. And respiration occurs at body temperature, but burning occurs at very high temperature. Then respiration occurs in a series of chemical steps: glycolysis, Krebs cycle, but burning takes place in a single step. And for respiration, what do we need? We need enzymes. But for burning, what do you need? You need heat. Okay, and respiration is a biochemical process, whereas burning is a physiochemical process. And energy is liberated as ATP and some heat, but in burning, energy is liberated as heat and light. And of course in respiration no light energy is produced, but in burning light energy is produced. Now children, remember that the entire plant respires. When I'm talking about the entire plant, I'm talking about each and every part of the plant, like the leaves, stems, roots, and even the deepest cell placed any region of the plant will respire. And for respiration, oxygen in plants goes into the plants through 3 inlets. First is the stomata in leaves, tiny openings that is found especially on the undersurface of the leaves, and it has 2 guard cells like the 2 panels of the door. The guard cells opens and closes. Because the guard cells are green in color, they will perform photosynthesis. So when the guard cells are full of water, it will open. After photosynthesis, it becomes flaccid, it wilts, and then the stomata will close. And next is the lenticels and stems. Okay, now lenticels are permanent opening in the stems formed by the falling off of the guard cells. Because when the plant first comes out from the seedling, the stems are always green in color, so it has stomata. And when the plant becomes matured, the stem will turn brown in color, so the guard cells will fall off and a permanent opening is formed on the stem. And oxygen also gets into the roots through the general surface of the roots. Now when the soil is plowed or tilled, that is when you dig the soil, what happens? There are tiny air spaces around the soil particles which give oxygen to the roots for respiration. Now if the soil around a plant has lots of water, that is, it is waterlogged and compact, means the soil will not have any air spaces and no oxygen will reach the roots. The roots will not be able to respire. As a result, the plant will very slowly die off. Now, during the daytime, photosynthesis takes place, and in photosynthesis, which gas is given out? Oxygen is given out, and some of the oxygen that is given out by photosynthesis is used by the plant for respiration, but maximum of the oxygen is diffused out. It goes out from the plant. And the carbon dioxide which is produced during respiration in the leaves, it is used by the plant for photosynthesis. Now at night, photosynthesis does not take place, so only respiration takes place. Okay, so the leaves will get their oxygen from the atmosphere and it will give out carbon dioxide from the stomata. There is exchange of gases for respiration. So that is why we should avoid sleeping under a tree at night. Why? Because fresh oxygen is not produced, and of course not only that, there will be insects living in the trees, isn't it? But it is said that sleeping under a tree during hot midday is good. Why? Because a person will get both oxygen, because the plant will perform photosynthesis, and because of photosynthesis lots of oxygen will be given out. And not only that, the area around the tree will be cool, because the leaves also give out water vapor due to the process of transpiration. Okay, now children, there are 2 types of respiration, aerobic and anaerobic. Now whenever we talk about respiration, that what must be taken in? Oxygen must be taken in. That is, free oxygen is used in respiration. And what happens to the glucose? It is completely broken down to give out carbon dioxide and water and energy as the end product. And of course, you can see it in this equation. 1 molecule of glucose, how it is completely broken down by 6 molecules of oxygen using some enzymes to form 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, 6 molecules of water, and 38 ATP. So the respiration which takes place only when oxygen is available is known as aerobic, also known as oxybiotic respiration. Now next, moving on to anaerobic respiration. Now sometimes what happens, certain parts of the plant, sometimes even the fruits and the seeds, may temporarily respire. Temporarily means only for a short duration of time, even when it does not receive oxygen. So in this type of respiration, the glucose molecule is incompletely broken down. It is not completely broken down. Okay, so it is incompletely broken down into ethanol, also known as ethyl alcohol, and carbon dioxide. And a very small amount of energy is given out. Okay, so this is the reaction. This is respiration. So here you can see only glucose is broken down. Why? Because there is no oxygen. So glucose is broken down to form ethanol, two molecules, C2H5OH, carbon dioxide, 2CO2, and only 2 ATP against the 38 ATP that was produced when aerobic respiration took place. So this type of respiration that takes place in the absence of oxygen or air is known as anaerobic or anoxybiotic respiration, because it takes place even without oxygen. So anaerobic respiration in any part of the plant cannot continue for more than a few days. It is only temporary, okay? And that part will ultimately die. But there are certain microscopic organisms, children, remember, there are certain bacteria and fungi which normally respire only anaerobically. If they are brought out into the atmosphere, to the surface of the earth, it will die. Think of the bacteria that is found in your stomach, which helps in digestion. Can it breathe? No, it cannot. From where is it receiving air? Because when you breathe in air, you take it inside your lungs. You will not take it inside your stomach. So the bacteria living in your gut respires anaerobically, and if it comes out, it will die. Okay, now even the germinating seeds, when deprived of air, if air is not given to it, respires anaerobically temporarily. Okay, now the difference between aerobic and anaerobic respiration in plants is given in this table. It is what we have already discussed. Go through and learn it also. Okay, so this is all for today. Your assignment for this week is to write down the definition of respiration, aerobic respiration, anaerobic respiration, and the difference between respiration and burning, and aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration, and write down the equations of respiration, aerobic respiration, and anaerobic respiration, and submit it on Wednesday. Till then, children, stay safe. God bless you.